you see people are jumping on this stuff really fast.
So Pokemon Go a few years ago, when that came out, it took only 19 days to get 50 million users, which is just crazy.
Hello and welcome back to the InGear Media podcast. This week we are going to be giving a roundup of Learning Technologies Week, which was last week at the time of filming this. So we went to a couple of events last week in aid of Learning Technology Week, and we wanted to make sure we kind of do a bit of a review of it, a roundup, some of the stuff that we learned to sort of feed back to anyone watching that perhaps didn't get to go. So, first of all, we went to the Omniplex E-learning Community day on the Monday, didn't we? Which was around sort of Whitechapel way. Into London for the day, good day out.
Yeah, much smaller event as well, much more closed, more intimate, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the smaller of the two. Yeah, and it was again a chance to sort of just sit down and do some cool workshops really. Yeah. As much as walking around trade shows can be really cool. That was a nicer way of doing that. And of course, like all events, you get one of these lovely little goodie bags. This is George's one. He's hung onto it, so usual stuff, brochures, stickers, charging banks, all these sorts of things. I think that's one of the reasons people go to these type of trade shows.
We love free
pens, free stickers. So all the usual goodies were on hand at that stuff. But I have to say the Omniplex day, that was the first time I'd been to one of their events, and I thought it was really well put together. There were some different speakers there, some stuff that I thought was really cool. So anyway, for me, this is always about value for people watching. So I don't just want to sort of go, this is where we went, this is what we did. I want to actually give some information back. George and I have got our notes in front of us about some of the stuff that we noted down on the day, so we're going to go through some of that. So first one that we kind of sat in on was Kashish Kachira on neuroscience, which was actually one of my favourite topics of the whole week.
Yeah. I love stuff like that.
How did you find it?
Yeah, one of my favourite things is always like science and actually the concepts behind all of the stuff that we do every day. And this is quite an interesting one around neuroscience. Is actually your brain physically changes on how you learn. So you have your neural pathways, obviously, which is your connections between like A and B or whatever. And the more you learn, the thicker those things get, and your brain will actually get bigger and smaller. So if you stop revisiting those pathways, your brain will actually shrink in certain areas. So if, like, for example, when you went to school, those areas are probably shrunk a bit from when you used to in your heyday. But there's a lot of cool stuff around that. There's also around the working brain was quite cool, wasn't it? On how when you're actually learning, your working brain can only hold on to 7 bits of information at a time.
Yeah, and I think as computer geeks almost, we kind of went, that's like your RAM, your memory, isn't it? As opposed to hard drive storage. That's that side of it. So sorry, go on.
Yeah. So your working brain, so when you're actually physically remembering something, you can only actually remember a very small amount of information at one time. It's only then when you revisit that you start to actually store it, and it goes into your long-term memory or short-term memory. Yeah, that was quite cool. Yeah,
and I think this is what I really liked about this is, so for us, for anyone who maybe doesn't know, we sort of produce e-learning content, e-learning courses. We're kind of on that side of the learning and development industry. I have a background in delivering face-to-face training as well, but to actually start to look at some of the the science behind how our brains work with this was really interesting. Another good point that Kashish made was that you forget 50% of what you learn within an hour of learning it, and she also mentioned about sort of 20 minutes is the sort of peak time for an exercise to last. Mm-hmm. So particularly when we design like a module of e-learning, that's quite helpful to sort of think about how long it should be. Bite-sized chunks always good. So you can forget 50% of it within an hour, And I think the other interesting thing was the way that we recall information and strengthen those neural pathways that you were just mentioning. She sort of mentioned how it's recalling it over time that really helps. So really, for us as you know, people developing learning, that was really sort of saying you should do regular knowledge checks throughout. So rather than one big quiz at the end of, you know, a piece of learning online, then perhaps we put smaller quizzes throughout.
Refreshers.
And again, a week or 2 weeks later, it's ideal to have some kind of refresher as well. So that's kind of where science was pointing. So all of that was really, really interesting stuff. And then she also had a bit about difficulty,
Yes.
which I thought was quite interesting. And she actually used research that had been based on video games. So game designers in video games, if it's too easy, people lose interest in the game, which of course makes sense. You know, I've played enough games to sort of know that as well myself. So having a challenge is real, and I think again it's very easy when you're developing e-learning and these types of things to make it overly easy sometimes.
Yeah, definitely, and almost patronising sometimes. When you're making those e-learning.
So the challenge has to be there. Of course, if it's too much, then you will just give up and lose interest that way. So
that's the way she was saying, was that little victories often you get that dopamine rush, don't you, which then strengthens your pathways and you learn better, etc., etc.
That was it, yeah. So the small victories, but with a sort of overlying harder challenge as well. So difficulty was another sort of topic around that. There was loads to this, but we've got sort of a few key points there. So I want to keep cracking on. The next talk that we listened to that day was from Stacey Adams from Beyond, which is how to describe it? It's like a video animation software.
A simple video.
Yeah, so it allows people to make different types of engaging videos. So Beyond in itself is worth a look if you're in the industry and haven't heard of it. That's really good. So she had some cool facts. One of the ones that we wrote down was that employees devote 1% of time to learning, check their phones 150 times a day, especially we're terrible for it, but we do work in marketing as well, and switch tabs every single minute. I mean, this is of course an average based on studies of office workers.
Let me see that one there.
And I think this goes back to, again, reinforcing that point of how we have to adapt. I mean, this goes for marketing as well, but you know, in this context, we're talking about learning. You have to adapt it to where people are and what they're doing, because they're so busy.
And also they have such short attention spans. That's why they were saying about having that learning in tiny little 5-minute chunks, just doing a little quiz at the end of the day or whatever. It integrates with your life, which means you're more inclined to actually do it.
Yeah.
And not, because learning should be fun, but learning should also be impactful. So putting it into their everyday lives and their schedules or whatever does help, doesn't it?
Yeah,
they do it.
Absolutely. And what I also found interesting that she mentioned, being from a head of marketing for a company that is video software to use for e-learning and other purposes, was that of course face-to-face training is still always key or king.
Yes.
You know, you're going to get the most engagement that way, followed then by video, followed then by imagery, and then lastly the written word. And actually I think it was another one of Kashish's facts on the neuroscience about how we process images. I'm pretty sure it was 6,000. Yeah, so you process an image 6,000 times faster than text. I've heard sort of numbers similar to that before around that sort of bracket, but again it just emphasises the point that visual, graphics, imagery, so on is really important.
It goes into your brain much faster.
Yeah, it's so much quicker to process for people. So simple and visual stuff was really, really key. So I think that was. I mean, we done a number of other things on that day. We wrapped stuff like different use of colours and workshops and so on. It was a good day, good chance for sort of having a bit of a chat with some people.
Yeah, that was the most important thing, wasn't it? Really chatting to the industry experts and actually seeing what they had to say. But yeah, I think that was about it from that event, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I think Jasmine from Omniplex as well. I didn't make any notes for this, but I did put some on my notebook. Around sort of using learning, how can it be more of a perk, not work? And
also the gamification of it, making it more fun and interactive to actually go through it, making it like, she used I don't know, you've seen it, Bandersnatch from Black Mirror, Netflix, where you actually choose your paths on the TV show. It's kind of using that, but in an e-learning sense, to then make your decisions, for example, around a customer situation, how you deal with it, and then you get graded on it or whatever, and then that way.
And that's given us some ideas around interactive video, which was really good. You know, how we can make interactive videos that learners engage with. So that was another sort of thing that come out of that day. Cool. So then for day 2, back into London, of course, but then for day 2 was at the London XL. Centre show, loads of exhibitors, thousands of people, tons to get around, so it was quite an early start to get over there in time, but again, really cool day. I don't know about you, I really enjoyed it.
That one too. Very, very good. I love walking around events like that, especially when there's so many different companies in like such a small but very big space.
Yeah. And I'd recommend that to people, you know, next year if they do it again. I'm sure they will. Then it's a good event to go to.
It's definitely in 2021.
Yeah, and I like walking around as well, even just from a marketing point of view, because of course we're learning, but we're also marketing. So, you know, looking at the stands, the designs, how people have done everything. So, but that's just me geeking out on the marketing stuff, I guess. So, okay, the first chat I have notes on was chatbots.
Yep.
So
it's Callum Gilbanks, wasn't it?
Callum Gilbanks' talk on chatbots that we listened to, because we made a point of getting to lots of different workshops that day as well. So
yeah, there were a lot of different topics.
Yeah, there was. I've never seen so many workshops at a show like that before. Actually, yeah, we've done marketing ones, and there's maybe 10 talks.
I think there was 9 theatres, wasn't there? 9 theatres, and then there was every single
11, I think, or 12.
Then every single slot, there was every 30-minute slot there was a speaker.
30, 40 minutes, yeah. It was
the whole day of just speaking.
There was tons of talks to go and listen to. Which was really, really useful.
It was actually too much. We had to choose, didn't we? We had to get rid of ones we did want to see.
Yeah, I felt like we were. I felt like in the old days when you got given an Argos book to circle the presents that you wanted. Did you do that?
Yeah,
You're probably too young for that.
iPad, Mackenzie.
But yeah, so we circled the courses we wanted to go to and went and sat in on them. So yeah, Callum Gilbanks, chatbots then. What was interesting with chatbots is he actually related all the way back to the Turing test, I think it was, but again I want to make sure I get these things right.
Yes.
Did we write that somewhere?
Yeah, the Turing test.
It was the Turing test. So Alan Turing was looking into research around robots in the 1950s. And originally, it was about how can we make a robot realistic to humans, and the Turing test was designed to measure how alike to a human a robot was.
How indistinguishable they were from humans.
And of course, the history kind of went on from there. But the key point really was that it's evolved today that actually when we use chatbots, and again this is marketing or learning environments, it's more for helping people, suggesting content, suggesting topics.
Well, people start to treat them actually as bots to fulfill a task, as opposed to trying to talk to them as a human, because they're not at the end of the day, are they?
Yeah.
And is there any point actually making them be human? Because at the end of the day, they are there to actually do something for you.
Yeah.
So,
it is a bot. So,
yeah.
and I thought it was an interesting thought that actually I think yeah, that's true. We don't actually think of it as trying to be like a human anymore.
Yeah.
It is a chatbot.
Yeah.
You know, we go, yeah, it's a chatbot, and we're happy to talk to a chatbot until the point that we need to talk to a human.
Yeah. It's also very important that the chatbot does understand normal human language, though, which is what he was saying as well. And he said one of the big challenges they actually had when developing chatbots was getting the contextual understanding from a human, because obviously you talk, and
yeah.
the bot then has to understand your random patterns of like how your brain works and what you're actually referring to when you're speaking about this topic. So that was one of the big challenges they said they had.
Yeah, because that's a good point, because his example was that if you perhaps said, can you book me a table for 7 o'clock at this restaurant, and then the bot sort of did it, and then you said, what's the weather like? And then the bot said it's raining. If you then asked, do they do takeout, so you can get takeaway, the bot would, it needs to know that you're asking, does the restaurant do takeout, not does the weather do takeout? That was the point made around that. So that's kind of what's holding chatbots back at the moment. Is that I think generally around the 2 days, people are definitely talking about it, but it's not something that we're going to see as a mainstream. Thing taking over people's jobs, or
of course they're still about, but they're not going to be that big main.
It's a supporting.
Yes.
Thing.
For example, a call centre. You call up a call centre. You have press 1 to go to this line. That's a chatbot in a sense.
Yeah, that is a chatbot.
Bot.
True.
Yeah.
And again, I like the idea of using it when you're on a learning management platform, and you know the chatbot can pop up and answer questions.
Yeah.
Somebody says, "Do you have any courses on time management?"
Yeah.
It can then recommend all the courses, save the user searching through the website for them, or the the platform through them. So it's stuff like that. Cool. Okay. So what's next? Future of learning. And by you, or is it this one? Connected learning. No, let's do. I think the future of learning. This was actually one of my favourite talks. So it was Anne Bayou from Edcast doing a talk on the future of corporate learning, actually, or learning in the corporate environment. So again, very relevant for a lot of stuff. But so she had some analogies and talking about innovation, and I think this is a topic that I love talking about across the board anyway, is that people are always resistant to change.
Always.
And the industry, like marketing and other industries, car industry we've talked about on other shows, it's changing so fast.
Yeah.
It's all about kind of who can adapt the quickest. So she actually had a really good example of just how quickly things are taking off now. So she had this chart, and it said the number of years that things took to get 50 million users.
Yeah.
So airlines or air travel took 68 years to get 50 million users. Cars took 62 years. Phones took 50 years. The television took 22 years. You can see this is coming down. PC took 14 years. Cell phones took 12 years. Internet took 7 years. And now iPod took just 4 years to get that many users. YouTube 4 years as well. Twitter 3 years as well. And then Facebook 2 years to get 50 million users. So you see people are jumping on this stuff really fast. But an example of just how quickly something can grow. Do you want to maybe do the last one?
Yeah, so Pokemon Go a few years ago, when that came out, it took only 19 days to get 50 million users, which is just crazy. And I think it grew
nuts, isn't it?
Much faster now after.
Absolutely mental. I mean, I think it dropped off fairly quickish, didn't it? It was a big craze, but the fact it just went that fast, something that took, it took people 68 years for that many people to go on a flight and adopt air travel,
just
19 days to download Pokemon Go. Yeah.
That's weird.
So again, it just highlights in this modern age how quickly stuff moves on, and you have to jump on these trends. I say it in our marketing podcast, I know, you have to jump on these trends. But yeah, it's that was quite a good way of sort of putting it. So she also, used examples that I've used in the past, like when the car was first invented, people didn't want to come off of their horse and car.
So you need a faster horse, you don't need a car.
That's the Henry Ford quote, yeah. Henry Ford quote. If we asked people what they wanted, they would say a faster horse.
Yeah. Which is weird. It's weird to think about.
And that's it. So innovation is a big part of all this. So having that autonomy in an organisation to adapt and change is really important moving forward, was sort of the underlying theme of that.
Yeah, she also mentioned a quote from Eric Ries, didn't she? The only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else. And I guess that kind of relates back to that. You have to adapt to the new technology, the new changes, whether it's learning, whether it's actually marketing. You have to be on top and jump on those trends, as you say. Love that.
Beat that drum. And then also from a corporate point of view, she mentioned, because Edcast have got many years of experience. They're a really big company working in corporate environments. I think a lot of universities and things. She said they work
with like Moodle, which is one of the biggest
Moodle
learning platforms.
So they do a lot of stuff, and one of their sort of methods is to sort of be present at the 5 biggest moments of need when somebody joins an organisation. It doesn't have to be a massive organisation, but I guess it makes more sense in a bigger one of this format. So when they're new, the onboarding phase was the first one. So that's a good time, of course, for lots of learning. I think a lot of people do that anyway. Onboarding is a big thing. But then the next one is when they start getting deeper into the role. Perhaps they need to just broaden some of their skill sets a little bit. Again, that's a good time to try and look at some learning options. Again, LMS or whatever it might be that you use to do that. And then fast sort of on the spot training when they need to just get something instantly.
Quick wins.
Yeah.
Which also goes back to the smaller topics that we mentioned before.
Yeah, and again, micro learning on demand when they need it. and so on. And it needs to be fast and easy to find, because as we've established, there's all sorts of stuff going on up here the whole time. And then the next one was change, so whether it's them being able to make change in the organisation, changing to a slightly new role, again, whatever that might be. And then the final one was move, whether it's sort of moving forward, progress, move forward, new skills, slightly into that slightly new role, whatever it might be. So there are key opportunities where people are more susceptible to training, so having that built into a plan again helped them.
It was also talking about personalising it as well for every person, so it's not just your generic training for this person at this time, it's also like training with the person or that employee and doing it when they need it or when they want it, because actually then goes in better if they're at that stage where they need to be learning, then they need to be given that learning, not be forced to wait or forced to have it early. So
yeah,
I guess that comes into the 5 moments of need as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, personalisation was another big topic
on the whole
for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think we'll summarise at the end. I think sort of some of the key takeaways for sure. Okay, then we listened to a talk by Alex Partners. So that was on personalised learning experiences. Again, it kind of feeds into that point. So they talked about the process of when they wanted to develop some new learning content for their learning management system for their staff. So they're a consulting firm, but their learning development department gave this talk. So it all started with them sitting their staff down, asking them what topics they feel like they need the most support with. So they've done surveys with
and
everyone.
Also when, wasn't it? Not just what, it was also when they want to do their learning.
Yes.
I mentioned they did say that their employees travel a lot, so they have a lot of downtime on flights or on travel, whatever, planes, trains and automobiles. But yeah, they said that they got feedback that that's the time they don't want to learn, that's their downtime, that's when they want to relax. So they didn't target any of their learning for that time, because they should respect that they're not going to take the information in if they're not willing to learn.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, which is a good point. So it's not just the what, the where, but when. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Developing the courses, so they then went away and started developing some of these courses, and they sat the consultants down in the room and they actually kind of had brainstorms with them and spoke about it and what they wanted and when they wanted it. So I thought it was a really nice way of sort of involving the people that are going to be using this system for learning.
Which makes sense, doesn't it?
It does make sense, because of course they're going to tell you what they want and what they don't want, and it worked well. And they also had quite an interesting way of personalising content as well. So they had an evaluation system. And again, it's one of the sort of things I took away as quite useful for future LMS systems that we might set up and work on. So they had an evaluation system where essentially somebody would come into the system, their skills would be graded, either I don't know whether they're inputted or whether the system does tests, I don't know, but their skills are inputted where they're at now, from sort of novice, intermediate, advanced, master sort of level of certain skills. And it would kind of plot their journey through as they go. So if they've done a couple sort of levels from like novice to intermediate on a skill already, it's quite likely that they'd want to do the next levels of that or the related skills to that, and the system could then recommend those courses based on that person's past learning. So again, and the company could also set, they said certain courses that they deem very important. So then on a personalisation point of view, people can kind of log in and they're getting personalised recommendations, very much in the way that if you or I use Netflix and we go onto Netflix, it can recommend shows that you might like based on what you've watched. Data is so important, and actually I haven't written that down, but data was a big thing. It always is, and in marketing as well, we're always talking how can we get data, especially hard in marketing, because you are trying to market to people that you have no info on and try and track whether that converts or not.
And they don't want to be marketed to.
And they don't want to be marketed to. That's anyway. So data was a big thing. Personalising was a big thing, but I think the Netflix analogy is used quite a lot, and I think it's a fantastic analogy in the sense of thinking, if you imagine content for learning that you really want to go and do, it's really interesting, and it recommends other stuff that you might like, a bit like Netflix. You can see how that makes sense. But they did also make the point of, we're not Netflix though, it is learning. It has to have a tangible result. It has to educate.
Not to entertain, is it?
It's not entertaining as such. It can be entertaining, but its primary goal is to educate. Because if you don't learn something from it, then what's the point in doing it?
Exactly.
and if somebody's going to sit and do a GDPR course,
which they don't want to
know,
do.
There's no amount of stuff you could do to that that's going to make somebody go, I really want to sit and do some GDPR training.
Yeah.
So it works to a point, the Netflix thing, but yeah, that was again just another point well made by those guys. Good. So that was that. Connected learning. Which one was this? This is the next one on my notes.
This was they spoke a lot about group work and actually creating like a learning culture in your business, whether it be through just implementing that culture and people talking or whatever, but also using an app. I think it was called Play. It was an app where you would have quizzes or you'd have like games or whatever, which would be educational in that sense, but you'd also compete against your employees or compete against your team members or whatever, whoever you want to then have the better score, the better time, whatever it is on a quiz. So actually making learning into a bit more of a competition, a bit more of a game.
Yeah.
Which then also goes back to the neuroscientist who said that it was actually better because it has that difficulty.
Yeah, the challenging element.
Yeah.
And also that feeds into the social learning as well, learning together. Learning is always more enjoyable as a group. So again, it's why a lot of people learn really well on the job training and so on. But yeah, social learning is it kind of feeds into that. And I know from events I've worked on with the training I've done for Mercedes over the years that at the global training events that we've done, all of our delegates for the last couple of years, there's like a quiz competition on the sort of training campus that we're working on. So the whole time they're there, they can actually be answering quiz questions to compete and have the highest score. And it works like a charm every time because they're then learning all these key facts. Quite often the same questions come up, and that's fine because then they're go back to the science of it, they're actually reconnecting those neurons, they're reinforcing that learning and so on. So I've seen that working firsthand on the competitive front and quiz front, so that was a really good example. There's some good products around that that they're working on that I'd be really interested in, where you can actually integrate this. So it was called Product Genius, and that was the learning technologies group that owned like an umbrella of different companies. So they were there under, I think, Leo at the time. Then two, so Ella Richardson and Andrew Jolie, that talk was. So that was quite interesting. There's some technology around there worth a look at if you're in the industry for sure that they're working on. And then lastly, one of my other favourite talks from the day. It wasn't really a talk. It was
walkthrough.
A walkthrough, but a challenge almost. So
for himself.
Yeah, for himself. So John Blackman from Trivantis, which again is another learning technology company. They make one of the largest e-learning course builders, Lectora, and a couple other ones I'm going to mention in a moment. He actually built a VR learning exercise in under 30 minutes. It's probably more like 20 minutes,
about 20
really.
Minutes,
So
he was definitely struggling.
Using their tool, Centuro, I think it's called. Centaur Centuro. I'm sure we'll link to some of this stuff anyway in the video when we post it. But yeah, so he used that to make a VR learning experience in literally 30 minutes. So highly recommend checking that out if you want to do something a bit different with your learning courses.
It's definitely worth it.
And to be honest, marketing as well. I've got so many ideas now for marketing where people can go on and do this little VR sort of experience and click through stuff and
so that's the thing, isn't it? It's an experience. It's not just a draggy learning thing. You can actually do something that it's almost like being there. It's almost like on-the-job training, but you're sitting on your phone or whatever.
And if someone watching like me on a budget is thinking, oh god, so you'd have to invest in VR equipment and headsets and it'd be really expensive, you don't need to do that. You can actually just use a phone and look around at the phone or on a computer screen, click and drag and look around. You're basically in a virtual environment. You can click and look around and see what's going on. And we could then place questions over, so he used, I think it was a brewery, so an alarm had gone off and you go and look at the alarm and you inspect it and you press the buttons and, sort of do, and then answer some questions and then you pass the exercise. So that was cool as well.
It was also really cool to see how simple it was and actually building it when it comes to actually putting it in. And it implements very well into current learning systems, so you can be like marks on it, you can get grades, and then people can actually track your progress and then do what the other guy said and then recommend you content based on how well you did, etc.
Yep.
So it's all very good.
Yeah, that was cool. And again, the data thing feeding.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite handy for us because tracking is always important. Okay, so I think that we did do other talks, but that's certainly the bulk of the notes that I had written, and I think really as a general overview for where the industry's at in terms of learning technology, there were sort of 3, maybe 4 main areas. Okay, so first of all, micro-learning was right up there. Everyone is talking about making short and sweet videos, short and sweet courses, sort of 20-minute sort of bracket was key, and as we've now learned, that's when attention drops off really beyond that point. So 20-minute modules or courses works really, really well, or videos. Gamification elements to particularly add in that sort of competitive side to it for people works really well.
More entertaining.
More interactive at the same time. And then coaching as well, we sort of made a note of. There were some people doing stuff about sort of working coaching elements into their training as well, or their courses, their online courses, because that's traditionally a classroom.
Which I guess that also comes back to making it more personalised, as if you have your own personal coach there every step of the way with your learning.
Yeah, I think personalised probably makes more sense.
More.
So micro-learning, gamification, personalisation, like George said, and then data.
Always data. Yeah, definitely data.
How can you capture data? How can you make your systems play well with each other so that they can share data amongst themselves?
Yeah, that's very important, isn't it? Sharing data between systems and employees or whatever.
Yeah,
it's good.
And just for no reason, in some cases, Dan, people don't have to log into things 3 or 4 times. Log into one system and go between the different systems. And it's exactly like I say in marketing, and you say in marketing. Make the journey as easy as possible. The easier the journey, the better it will be, because people are busy. They don't want to have to.
It's just one click too much.
It's one click too much.
They will leave because they don't have time for that.
That final straw.
No, that's it.
But I've done it. Imagine, I don't know about you, I've been signing up to something before,
and then just gone.
And it asks me so many questions. I just then go, do you know what? I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I won't see.
Yeah, or if I have to make an account on a store to buy something. Versus just
free.
Going, it's free. It just takes me probably 5 minutes tops, or I can go to Amazon and go click, and it's on its way.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've got my details.
Even if it's slightly more expensive, but it's just easier. It's easier.
I'd easily pay a little bit more just to have it easy done. And I think this is a similar sort of principle. So anyway, there you go. That is our roundup of Learning Technologies Week. There's plenty more out there, but that gives you a bit of an idea about what we've been up to and some of the cool stuff that we've seen and learned in the past week. Any final thoughts before I close off?
It was good fun though. It was very good fun.
Yeah, and it's good fun at the same time.
Yeah,
and we had a couple of beers while we were in London, so can't go wrong with that.
Definitely recommend it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much. That's it for this episode. As always, let us know any topics you would like us to cover. Send in questions for us as well, whether it's marketing or learning technology, whatever. We're working in all these different spaces. So look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.